Chapter 2. The Problem with Believing We're Right. I can't believe we trusted him. He had our money, as well as the project we had given him to do, and he had simply disappeared. No one else knew where he was either, even the people who had worked in nearby booths at the swap meet for years. Since he always rented the same space for his work, he had been easy to find. He had done top-quality work for us in the past, and we had been thrilled with the results. We could pick up an inexpensive scenic print at one of the art dealers at the event and take it to him. A week later, the print was mounted and coated with a unique heat-applied finish that made it look like a piece of art costing a small fortune. It was waterproof, damage-proof, and protected from just about anything that could happen, except theft. Other than that, he seemed like a genuinely nice guy. We had gone to the huge swap meet about 30 miles from our house one Saturday morning, specifically looking for a picture to hang in the guest bedroom we were decorating. We sipped the coffee we had stopped to purchase as we wandered through the outdoor gallery. Our choice was obvious and perfect, and we immediately took it to the seller for his finishing touches. We agreed on the price, paid for the work, and arranged to meet him the following weekend. Emotion, deep satisfaction. We made a good choice. The coffee tasted great as we enjoyed the morning's casual activities. The following Saturday, we stopped for coffee and strolled through the parking lot. But when we got to his space, it was vacant. We walked up and down several neighboring aisles to make sure we had the right one, but he was gone. We assumed he was sick and couldn't make the event. We understood, but it would have been nice for him to have called and saved us the trip. Emotion. Somewhat annoyed, but understanding. At least we had good coffee. We managed to mentally put it aside during the next week and planned for another trip to pick it up the following Saturday. Again, we stopped for coffee, almost to convince ourselves that we were okay and that we would have a nice morning. As we walked through the parking lot, we said, "Wouldn't it be a bummer if he was gone again this week?" That turned out to be prophetic. The space was once again empty, and no one had seen him. We tried to stay calm, reassuring ourselves that something must have happened since he had been so trustworthy in the past. But at the price of gas, these trips were becoming more than just inconvenient. They were cutting into the money we had saved by shopping at this swap meet. Emotion. Bummed. Bordering on angry, but trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. Too much drama. We don't like drama. The coffee seemed to get cold quickly, and we tossed the half-empty cups. Another week passed. We didn't talk about it, but the unfolding drama was always in the background. We planned to go back on Saturday when we would determine if our fears had any foundation. Sure, he'll be there this time, and he'll let us know what went wrong. We had his phone number on the back of the receipt. Just to make sure, I called and left a cordial message. "Hi, we were in a few weeks ago and left a picture for you to mount for us. You mentioned that it would be done the next Saturday, but we couldn't find you that day, or the next Saturday as well. So we're planning to drop by tomorrow and just wanted to make sure everything's okay and that we could get our picture. It is kind of a long drive, so we were just checking before we come. See you tomorrow morning." The phone didn't ring. We drove the 30 miles to the swap meet. We didn't get coffee. Coffee is something you get when you're happy and having a relaxing morning. We figured we'd get our coffee after we picked up our picture and everything was good. He wasn't there. Emotion. Anger at him for not getting in touch with us. Anger because we had been duped. Anger because he had our picture and our money, and obviously had skipped town with the stuff and probably stuff from a bunch of other people as well. Anger at ourselves because we had trusted him. Anger at the fact that we had driven 240 miles over 4 Saturdays. Anger at the drama, too much drama, involving raw emotions and trust issues. Anger at the fact that we were going to have to figure out what to do about it. Plus, we hadn't had any coffee, which made us even grumpier. By the time we got home, I had calmed down enough to make the phone call. I decided to be polite but firm in my voicemail message. "I'm calling again about the picture. You haven't returned our calls, and it's hard to keep from thinking the worst. We need to hear from you and find out when and where we can pick up the pictures. Goodbye." We were gone the rest of the day, but his return message on our machine told us that he had called within an hour of receiving our message. This is the guy from the swap meet. His voice was shaky. I'm really sorry about everything, and I'll arrange for you to pick up your picture. The shakiness turned to sobs. We found our infant son dead in his crib a couple of weeks ago. They said it was sudden infant death syndrome, I think. He was our only son. I just don't know what to do. I'm really sorry. Somebody is taking all my pictures to his warehouse, and you can pick it up there. His voice trailed off before he disconnected. I'm sorry. Emotion. Deep, deep hurt for his tragic loss. Shame for the assumptions we had made. An insatiable desire to reach out to him. I called back and left a message of connection and compassion. The picture wasn't important anymore. We saw him differently. A man who had just been devastated and needed arms of healing around him. We were drained from the emotional roller coaster. It had been a month filled with drama. But as unpleasant as the drama was, it couldn't compare to the drama he had experienced. The problem with perspective. As much as we say we dislike dramatic relationships, we're drawn to them on reality television. When the villain emerges, the show gets interesting, and we can't tear ourselves away. The drama builds ratings, and we talk about the episodes with friends the next day. We love to watch crazy people, as long as we don't have to interact with them personally. We all have drama in our lives, but many people are controlled by that drama. Their lives and emotions seem to be at the mercy of everything that happens around them. Without realizing it, they have become victims of the weaknesses of others, and their lives are controlled by those people. Thinking back over the swap meet events, I've often thought about the drama surrounding it. Where did my emotions come from in that process? Since I didn't have all the facts, did the real drama come from the situation or from my interpretation of the situation? Could I have handled it differently? What about the next time something like that happens? Is there a way to respond differently? I realized that my problem was threefold. 1, I didn't have all the facts, so I made assumptions. 2, I decided those assumptions were accurate. 3, my emotions were based on assumptions that were untrue, but I didn't know they were untrue. Notice that the whole process took place inside my head. In this case, I was upset that another person was messing up my life. But if I had known the truth, I could have made better assumptions and experienced different emotions. In fact, that's exactly what happened when I finally discovered the truth. That's the problem with our perspective. We always assume we're right based on the information we have. In most of this book, we'll be talking about how to respond when people make crazy choices that mess up our lives. But the place to begin is with our perspective. No matter what the other person does, it's our perspective that determines how we feel and respond. Our perspective is the lens through which we interpret everything we see in the world around us. It's like wearing glasses. Unless they're really dirty, we don't notice the lenses. We see through those lenses. If the lenses have the wrong prescription, things look distorted. When that happens, we don't question the lens. We just assume that the object we're seeing is really distorted. People don't start out crazy at birth. In their first few years, they decide if the world is a safe place or not. That's where their lenses are shaped, that they use the rest of their lives to learn to function in society. If they have positive and secure experiences early on, they can feel safe and build positive relationships. If they have negative experiences, they see the world as unsafe and develop skills to negotiate the landmines of life. When that happens, their ways of coping might appear crazy to others. For example, rich people often assume that poor people would be happier if they became wealthy, and that wealthy people would become unhappy if they became poor. Yet some of the wealthiest people in society are the most unfulfilled because they haven't found true happiness. Some of the poorest people experience true joy in close relationships and simple lifestyles. A story made the rounds on the internet several years ago that describe this scenario. An American businessman was on the pier of a small coastal Mexican village when a small boat with just one fisherman in it docked. Inside the boat were several large yellowfin tuna. The American complimented the Mexican on the quality of the fish and asked how long it took him to catch them. The Mexican replied, "Only a little while." The American then asked why he didn't stay out longer and catch more fish. The Mexican replied that he had enough to meet his family's needs. The American then asked, "But what do you do with the rest of your day?" The Mexican fisherman said, "I sleep late, I fish a little, I play with my children, I take a siesta with my wife. I stroll into the village each evening where I sip some wine and play guitar with my amigos. So I have a full and busy life, senor." The American laughed and scoffed at him. He said, I have an MBA from Stanford, and I can help you. You should spend more time fishing, and with the proceeds, you could buy a bigger boat. And with the proceeds from the bigger boat, you could buy several boats. And eventually, you'd have a fleet of fishing boats. And then instead of selling your catch to that middleman over there, you could sell directly to the processor, eventually opening your own cannery. You could control the product. You can control the market. You can control all the processing and distribution. And then, of course, you'd need to leave this little fishing village and move to Mexico City. Then you'd move to L.A. and eventually New York City, where you'd run an expanding enterprise. The Mexican fisherman said, "But, senor, how long will this take?" The American replied, "Maybe 15 to 20 years. "But what then, senor? What after the 15 to 20 years? The American laughed and said, That's the best part. Because after that, when the time is right, you'd sell your company's stock to the public. You'd become filthy rich. You'd make millions." "Millions, senor. Then what would I do?" The American said, "Then you could retire, move to a small coastal fishing village where you could just sleep late, fish a little, play with your kids, take a siesta with your wife, stroll into the village in the evening where you could sip wine and play guitar with your amigos." The Bible says that any argument makes sense until we hear the other side. Proverbs 18:17. That doesn't mean we're wrong and the other person is right, but it means that our perspective may be incomplete. The only hope we have for dealing with crazy people is to base our assumptions, actions, and responses on truth. It takes humility to question our perspectives. Until we look through the other person's eyes, we don't have the complete picture. The chances for change. Some people have been impacted by the craziness of others for so long they can't imagine living any differently, or even believing it's possible. Can it be different? Is it possible to live in freedom from the tyranny of other people's actions? The answer is yes. The chances of changing someone else's behavior might be as realistic as getting your teenagers to clean their rooms. Possible, but not likely, and not without a fight. But we can always choose how we respond to others. It might be unfamiliar territory, and it's a different way of thinking that needs to be learned and practiced. But it's possible. This is a book about hope. We won't be able to eliminate the drama in our lives or escape all the crazies, but we can actually learn to live responsively instead of reactively, being positive when others are negative. We'll learn the keys to living in community with the crazy people we can't escape, being victors instead of victims. We'll learn how to discover and accept our unique temperaments, operating from a position of strength exactly the way we were created. We'll explore the impact that others have on our lives and learn what to do with the reactions we have around them. We'll talk about what we can do to impact those relationships and how to handle it when they won't change. We'll learn how to harness the power of emotions in relationships instead of being threatened by them. We'll study the life characteristics that equip us to handle the drama in an honest, realistic way. Living in hope comes from seeing things the way they really are. It starts with checking our own perspectives before trying to influence the perspectives of others. It's about changing from the inside out.